Yes, hold on a tick.
Well, I too, just like our buddy Austin Powers here, get to check off one of my great to-do things in my list of life. I've always wanted to make a video that was so interesting that Azrienoch would feel compelled to respond to it. So, thank you very much, Az. Just check that one off the list. Okay, here's how I'm going to structure my response video. First of all, I'm going to answer some of the critiques, questions you had about my 3 videos. Then I'm going to give a sermon about normative versus descriptive vocabulary and why it's very important to draw that distinction and maintain that distinction. Okay, so first of all, your critiques questions. Free will basically is where was the will, right? Yeah. Why? How can you possibly talk about free will without us actually mentioning the will? The will was there. It was just kind of buried. Okay, we can kind of say that will is the exercise of a choice, or when you're making a choice, that's what you're doing. You're exercising your will. So everything that you wanted to wrap up into willpower there, I would want it to wrap up into choice. Basically, when you're making a choice, you're exercising your will. Actually, your video sounded a little bit Schopenhauer-esque to me. Actually, everything in the universe is will or representation, one of the two, right? Okay, second thing. You mentioned that I had acknowledged that choice had nothing to do with morality, consciousness, or reasons. It's not quite an accurate characterization. I said that choice really, consciousness was probably, not necessary to do with choice at all. But I do think that both morality and reason have a very interesting relationship with choice. And here it is, okay? I think that every choice happens because of a reason, and because it happens because of a reason, therefore, every choice that we make, we are held morally accountable for. Moral culpability accrues to us on the basis of the choices that we make. Okay, we are not given moral. If we have like an accident or a terrible thing that happens, we don't have the same moral culpability than if we deliberately did it. First-degree murder is different from manslaughter, basically, and the difference is choice. Okay. Let's see. You mentioned choice is synonymous with free will as something that... No, that's not an accurate characterization of my position either, okay? I define free will in terms of 2 different concepts, possibility and choice, right? So choice is just a part of the bigger picture on the free will thing here. Okay, why I think the ambient sleep driver is a case of planning, okay? Now, I'm using planning here as kind of a term of art, as they use it in artificial intelligence circles. It's what Google Maps does when you give it a start destination and an end destination, and it plans a route that will get you there. A series of actions that you do. Get on this street, get off this street, turn left, turn right, all this kind of stuff. Basically, that's how they use it in artificial intelligence. A series of actions that you take in order to get from here to there or achieve your goal. I mean, think about trying to make a robot that will actually do this. Get up in the middle of the night, go down to the fridge, see if there's beer in the fridge. If there's no beer in the fridge, get in the car, plan your route to go to the store. I mean, it's far beyond the capability of anything that we can make robots do. If we could do it, I'm sure whoever did it would claim that they replicated intelligence. But I think the ambient sleep driver case shows how far away they still would be in terms of not really replicating human intelligence. And I think it's further an interesting case because it's using the same hardware that we're using when we're doing intelligent things, right? And when we're making choices. So I think the ambient-driven sleep driver case, really very clearly shows, seems like we agree that this is not a case of choice at all. This shows that the satisfaction of an urge is not a choice. This shows that, merely following a step of plans, planning and following a complex series of actions is not choice either. And I think this goes towards saying, this is a very clear case. I think when you say that animals make choices, I think this argues against that as well. I think what animals are doing are quite a bit like what the ambient sleep driver is doing. I don't think it can be characterized as choice. It seems we agree that animals do not have free will. I think the ambient-driven sleep driver case really underscores the fact that animals do not make choices in the same sense that humans make choices at all. So, grammatical settings. Your concept of a grammatical setting here seems to bear kind of a family resemblance to Wittgenstein's language games. And it also seems to bear more than a passing resemblance to Dennett's concept of a stance, right? When he's talking about taking the intentional stance towards an entity. But anyway, you take this concept and you analyze free will in terms of a particular sort of a grammatical setting, stance that we're taking towards an entity. And once we take this, basic framework here towards that entity, this kind of like absolves us from giving, the need for finding any sort of cause or explanation or reason as to why this entity is behaving in the way that it's behaving. It's an interesting concept. I have a question about it, though. How is this really explaining? How can this be characterized as an explanation of the behavior? I mean, it's more like an absolving of us of doing it, or removing from us the responsibility for making sense of the behavior of this entity that we're putting in this grammatical setting, right? In fact, it seems to be kind of like a Virtus Dormativa kind of explanation. So I guess my question to you is, how is this not really a Virtus Dormativa type of explanation? God, you mentioned God in terms of this. It's actually fascinating how often God comes up in terms of discussions of free will. And there's a very interesting reason, I think. And that is because I think free will does depend on norms. And whenever you bring God in, okay, you bring in all these thou shalt nots, you bring in normativity with it. Yes. Okay, positing God is taking, in Dennett's sense, is taking the intentional stance towards the universe and saying the things that happen are happen because of reason and intentionality and meaning. Very definitely, okay? But, when you bring all this stuff in, you also bring in the morality. You also bring in the thou shalts and the thou shalt nots. And with the knowledge of good and evil comes sin. And this kicks off my sermon that I'm going to give now on the necessity of maintaining a very robust and acknowledging a distinction between descriptive vocabulary and normative vocabulary. Kind of slur these together, I think, in your anthropomorphizations. So here comes the sermon. Okay? Let me describe two situations for you, right? One is a rock rolling down the hill, right? The other is a young man finding a woman so attractive that he marries her just because of sheer physical attraction. Okay? Now, we can describe both of these situations in terms of forces and, attractions and all this kind of stuff, right? But there is a clear and very manifest distinction between these two cases. Okay, we can make the difference very urgent by observing that in the case of the young man, we can criticize the young man for his choice. We can criticize the young man for this reason. We can say to him, just marrying for sheer physical attraction is a bad idea, right? We can in no ways do this to the rock without inappropriate anthropomorphization. We can't say to the rock, you should have stayed at the top of the hill. I know gravity's really strong, but that was just a bad thing on your part to roll down the hill. Look what happened now, okay? I just really don't understand why this difference isn't just... it's a huge difference between what the young man is doing, what the rock is doing. Okay, especially for you, Azrienoch. I mean, it's like you have read Wittgenstein with understanding, and this is exactly what Wittgenstein is talking about, in the difference between just exhibiting a disposition and following a rule. So the young man is following a rule. The rock rolling down the hill is just exhibiting a disposition, right? Okay, and the difference is this normative characterization, this norm-governed behavior. In fact, this is a signature difference between Wittgenstein's earlier philosophy and his later philosophy, and I think it's one of the most important observations in later 20th century philosophy, the real necessity of drawing a distinction between these two things. So one more question for you before I sign off here. This grammatical settings-based the conception of free will that you have here seems to leave mysterious the connection between two different stances or settings that we can take towards somebody. Okay, we can put them in the grammatical setting of ascribing free will to them, and we can put them in a setting of ascribing moral culpability to them. I think that a signature advantage of Davidson's proposal here is that it makes very clear why it is that we only ascribe free will to humans, and at the same time we only ascribe moral culpability to humans. And the reason is because of, we ascribe people, a responsibility for their choices because their choices are caused by entities, reasons, which we can criticize normatively. I think that's a very signature advantage. So it seems to me that your stance-based, grammatical settings-based explanation here kind of leaves that mysterious. So I'm wondering how you would make that connection there. At any rate, thanks very much for your reply. Like I said, another check off of my great check off list of life. So thanks a lot.